Dr. Gallagher.
Along with Dr. Simperman, and we're here today to talk a little bit about label reading, give you a little bit of information, maybe clarify some of the confusion that exists around those nutrition labels on the back of products that we buy in the store. So as always, the information presented in this program is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease, illness, or health condition. The statements presented in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA, and as always, you should consult with a licensed healthcare professional before beginning any type of treatment. Here we are over the Memorial Day weekend. We were visiting our children out in Utah. 2 of them anyway, and we were hiking in Little Cottonwood Canyon. This is Little Cottonwood Creek, and it was a glorious day. The water was really running from all the snow melt. The sky's blue, and it's mostly always blue out there. Everything was in bloom. We had a really nice hike on that particular day and had a nice visit with our kids.
So you are what you eat. Nutrition class 101. This is the package of his produce is going to have a label.
So what is your body made of? Well, it's comprised of mostly water. Water is the most plentiful thing in your body. That's why we always recommend that you stay well hydrated. Half your body weight in ounces is the amount of water that you should consume to stay well hydrated every day. You have a whopping big 2 pounds of minerals in your body. These are very important for many cellular functions. And you have a small amount of carbohydrates. You're about 1/4 fat and 3/4 protein.
So what are carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and what do they have to a label and nutrients from the food that we eat, and they are present in carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and those are considered our macronutrients or large nutrients, which are broken down into vitamins and these are
your carbohydrates. These are things like your sugars and your starches and cellulose. They provide the body with immediate energy. So these hydrates are the fuel that your body burns for energy. And most people, burn.
Carbohydrate family are starches and cellulose. And starches are the things that we can digest, and they're composed of white, whole wheat, grain flours, pastas, rices, vegetables, fruit, and beans. And then cellulose is a plant fiber that is found in and fruit and beans, and it's not digestible, and that's part of the carbohydrate.
So this is something that I think is really important that you remember. And there are carbohydrates that you consume in excess of what your body needs for energy are converted to fat. Let me repeat that. All excess carbohydrates are converted to fat. There's no exceptions here. So you really want to be careful about overeating your carbohydrates. And we know the best sources of carbs are fruits and vegetables and whole grains. I would recommend overeating the grain.
So proteins, which are the building blocks of life, are very essential to maintaining good health and vitality. The best source of your proteins are going to be lean meat, poultry, eggs, fish, beans, nuts, and whey protein.
Now, what about your fats, good fats And what kind of oils? What about the oils? Because we all use oils in cooking and salads. So fats are the most concentrated source of energy that you have in your diet. And they supply the body with long-term energy. They also are important in making hormones, protecting your heart, fighting against diabetes, and good fats are also very beneficial in helping weight loss. So most of the food we eat is a mixture of 3 types of fat. You have saturated fats, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated. Let's clarify that a little bit. Saturated fats are favorable, good for health. They include vegetable fats, butter, lean meat, and dairy products. So your polyunsaturated fats, they might tend to go rancid rapidly, and these include things like corn oil, safflower oil, soy oil, cottonseed oil. And you can get some polyunsaturated fats from fish. All right, then we have the monounsaturated fats, which are olive oils, your peanut oil, and canola oil. Now, canola oil is a little more processed than the other ones, but it still is a monounsaturated fat.
So how to understand and use the nutrition fact label. So as of March of 2020, the FDA and the USDA's Food and Safety and Inspection Service have overhauled the format and content of food labels. The last time they did that was in 1989. So now what they've done is they've changed a few things. In other words, when you look at the label, which we have a picture of on the next slide, the calorie amount is larger and the serving size is larger and bolder. So you can actually see it right away. You can see how many calories are in each serving. And remember, the serving size is how many servings there are in that particular box or package. And then it's going to base every nutrition amount on that serving size. So that's really important. There's something else that's changed, is that's the percent of daily value, which shows how much of a nutrient is in a serving of food, and that contributes to the total daily diet. And that's based on calorie count. Calories from fat have been removed. We're not counting that anymore. And the type of fat is more important than the amount of calories from that fat. So the better fats are being acknowledged. They also removed vitamin A and C amounts, as deficiencies for those 2 vitamins are rare. They added sugars that have been added to the product on the label, so you can see how much sugar was added, not just naturally there. And they also added vitamin D, potassium, along with calcium and iron, because of different deficiencies, and they want people to be able to see right away on the label that you can see how much you're getting in each serving. And there is a little picture of the new label. You can just see it's not the greatest picture, but you can see the calories have come up in bolder and bright. They're really easy to see. The serving size is larger, and all the percentages are listed there, as well as the vitamin counts, vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium, cholesterol amounts, total carbohydrate, and underneath that you can see includes added sugar. So those are the things that are really important to know about the new label.
So when you're buying food, they usually, unless it's, fruits or vegetables, the packaging usually has something on it to get your attention. And that's what prompts you, or entices you to buy that particular product. Now, the FDA has come up with 9 core terms and definitions to help you make accurate purchasing decisions. So we want to kind of talk a little bit about that.
So there's a lot of confusion about the carbohydrate on the label. In fact, we just talked somewhat about that. And sometimes things will say low carb, light, carb free to describe the carbohydrate content of food, but that's not allowed as far as the terms. You may find that on the packaging itself, but not on the label. So they are allowed to put things like net carbs or net impact carbs or net effective carbs to describe the carbohydrate content of a food.
So again, we just want to review, they updated this nutrition label. And when you look at it, unless you're comparing it to an old one, you're not going to know the difference. But the serving size is in bold print. The calories are in very bold print. And under the total carbohydrates in whatever's in that package, it's going to say if it includes any added sugars, that'll be listed there. Also very important is they're going to tell you what types of fat are in that particular packaged product. They'll have cholesterol on there. Of course, protein, how many grams of protein. And then, again, their nutrient is in there. And we have the total nutrient totals of vitamin D, calcium, sodium, iron, and potassium will all be listed on the nutrition label.
So the ingredients are listed in the order of the greatest amount to the least amount. So it's important when you read what's in that package that you notice that, and any ingredient under 1 gram does not have to be listed. This can be up to 15 ingredients, which can include things like spices, preservatives, colors, dyes, and unknown substances.
So food additives. Some of these can be potentially harmful. MSG, a flavor enhancer, this has been known to contribute to reproductive, nervous system, and brain disorders. Nitrates have been shown to be cancer-causing. We have preservatives like BHA and BHT, which also have been implicated in causing cancer, birth defects, and infertility.
So food additives, that sound scary, but are actually harmless and will help to preserve your food, but in a more natural way. So we talked a little bit about the cellulose, which was the undigestible plant fiber. That's perfectly safe. Alpha-tocopherol acetate, or vitamin E as it's called, ascorbic acid as vitamin C, and also you might see citric acid, which are all safe food additives and help to preserve the food for a little bit longer.
So what about nitrites and nitrates? And these are added to prevent the growth of bacteria and to enhance the color. And most likely you're going to find these in processed meats, ham, bacon, hot dogs, deli kind of meats. And also, they've been implicated in increasing the risk of cancer and other health problems as well in excessive amounts.
So artificial sweeteners, this is a hot topic because people try to get the sweet taste, but in an artificial way, which is really harmful to use. And saccharin, which has been classified as harmful to human health and can cause bladder cancer, is known to. Aspartame, NutraSweet, and Equal, both of these are artificial sweeteners, and they have been associated with 2 types of cancer, lymphoma and leukemia, and they have also been linked to panic attacks, episodes of dizziness and seizures, and then sucralose has not been linked to any form of cancer. Extensive studies in humans are currently being conducted, and it's important to know that Splenda is a chlorinated artificial sweetener that has not been adequately tested as of yet.
So on these packaging, they sometimes will say certain things, and they're allowed to do this because there are some sort of allowable things that they can allude to. One of them would be that trans fats can be related to heart disease and cancer. All right. And when you're looking at your fruits, vegetables, and grains contain fiber, they can say that these are heart healthy foods because the fiber in them helps reduce your risk of heart disease. Fiber, again, found in grain products, fruits and vegetables also can reduce your risk of cancers. Sodium can be linked to hypertension, and they're allowed to, imply that in the claims on the packaging. And they can also make references to calcium being beneficial in the prevention of osteoporosis. So these are not on the food nutrition label. These are things that they would put on the packaging to, again, influence you to purchase that product.
So sugar. Sugar is measured in grams on the label, which probably most of us can't convert grams to our normal system that we're using. So I don't know how many people can convert grams to teaspoons or cups or anything like that. So, but I'm going to help you out with that, and I'm going to tell you about it. But in the meantime, I want to tell you what words actually mean sugar on the label. Things like brown sugar, corn syrup, dextrin, dextrose, sucrose, fructose, glucose, honey, sugar, jam, jelly, lactose, lactulose, maple syrup, maltose, molasses, and turbinado sugar. So the important thing that you should come out of listening to us this evening is that 4 grams of sugar is equal to 1 teaspoon. So that's important. I want you to go and try to look at some labels and see how much sugar is in your products.
What about natural? Because a lot of packaging labels will say natural. What exactly does that mean? Well, that means that it contains no artificial ingredient or added color, and it's only minimally processed. So when it says that, the label, the specific explanation such as no artificial ingredients, minimally processed. And this can kind of be misleading because it could lead you to believe that the product is actually healthier and more humane than it really is.
So there is something that's called certified humane, and this is actually, there are groups that certify this, and what it means is the animals are never confined in cages or crates. They're not to debeaking, which is poultry. No sub-therapeutic antibiotics or hormones are given, but it doesn't mean the animals have access to a pasture. And I know that I would think that. Now, if it's something as animal welfare approved, the animals will have access to a pasture. So that you'll see certification on the package.
So what about grass-fed? Because grass-fed beef is becoming more and more popular. So that the USDA's grass-fed marketing standard requires that animals must have continuous access to pasture during the growing season. This does not mean that the animals are going to spend their entire life in the pasture or grazing on rangeland. Now, some companies that market their meat as naturally raised or grass-fed actually will feed their animals grain for significant periods of time when they're not out in the pastures grazing.
So what does lean or extra lean mean when we're talking about meat? So lean is going to be in the 3.5 ounce beef. You're going to have fewer than 10 grams of fat and 4.5 grams of saturated fat and fewer than 95 milligrams of cholesterol. So when you take it to the extra lean at the same amount of beef, then you're going to have fewer than 95 milligrams of cholesterol. So that's the difference between that.
So what about your processed meats? Well, we mentioned earlier that they contain nitrites and nitrates, and they also do contain other preservatives, flavor enhancers, artificial coloring, and some of them are pretty high in sodium. So I would say, don't overdo the processed meats, because with all these additives, there is some relation to certain types of cancers in the stomach, kidneys, and in the colorectal type of cancers. So beware of these added ingredients, because some of them have been known to be linked to adverse health conditions.
So what does cage-free mean with our eggs? So hens that are not raised in cages, no standard definition, but implies birds are free to perform their natural behaviors, and not all cage-free are certified by American Humane Certified Label. So this is not a certifiable label, cage-free, it's just something put on a package.
So what about pasture-raised? Does is something that you see on packaging all the time. Well, what is that? Animals can roam freely in their natural environment. They're roaming freely and they can eat the nutritious grasses and other plants that their bodies have adapted to digest optimally. There's no specific certification here. So if you're looking for something that's organic in the meat area, it must come from animals that have continuous access to pasture.
Free range is another thing you'll see on a package, and it only applies to poultry. It's regulated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and only means animals have been allowed to access to the outside, but not as much.
And then we have fish. So I think it's really important when you're purchasing fish to make sure that you're not getting farmed fish. A rather large percentage of fish sold in the U.S. is now farmed. And this is, I don't know, it kind of grosses me out. They raise them in pens anchored in coastal areas or large bodies of water. And sometimes that they live in those pens is not actually the greatest as far as, cleanliness and removal of waste products. They also may be fed genetically modified soybeans or corn. They may be given antibiotics because there's so many of them concentrated in a small area and exposed to the waste products from the fish there in their pens. So oftentimes they do feed them antibiotics as well as other things that you may not want to be consuming.
So hormone-free or no added hormones. This means that animals have never been given any hormones. There's no specific certification, though if it's organic and grass-fed labels, those particular meats and poultry will not be able to use hormones.
So what does organic mean? Well, organic foods are subject to production standards and certification by the National Organic Producers and the FDA. They're food products that must be grown, processed, and packaged without the use of pesticides, artificial fertilizers, and radiation or food additives, and the livestock must be grown without the use of antibiotics and growth hormones.
So what does the organic label mean? It means that at least 70% of the ingredients that are listed are certified as organic. If there are ingredients that are not organic, they may have to be listed separately. They're not, and if there is a group of items that maybe 2 or 3 things on that label are organic, they will be listed as organic, but the other ones will not be.
So to be organic, it must be third-party certified to meet USDA criteria. It cannot be treated with antibiotics or hormones. Can't be irradiated or genetically modified. There can be no synthetic fertilizers, chemicals, or sewage sludge used. Must be fed only organically grown feed. Animals must have access to outdoors and pasture. Now, if you're looking for the PLU number, that's 5 digits. The first number is always going to begin with a 9, and it's going to have the 100% organic label on it.
So you might have seen this, none of the recombinant bovine growth hormone, RBGH free, and that means that that product, especially dairy or cheese, does not contain this growth hormone. And just so that you know, the RBGA engineered, which means that it was altered in a lab and injected into the animals, usually the dairy, and then again for cheese, cottage cheese, yogurt, etc.
So beware of the genetically modified foods. You know, the canola oils and the cottonseed oils, those are made from genetically modified plants. We have soy as highly, you know, a great percentage of the soy out there, unless it specifically says organic, is probably genetically modified. Same thing with corn, tomatoes, potatoes, peas, papayas. You got to watch your dairy products as well. And I will also watch some of the grains like wheat, because it is highly genetically modified as well. So you want to pay attention, make sure that it has this label on it, non-GMO, verified, and you can go to their website and get more information if you're so interested. But if it has this label on it, you know that there's no genetically modified ingredients.
So in conclusion, we're just going to review some things. All packaged and processed foods are required to have a descriptive food label, which is that nutrition label we showed you before. Refining, processing, and canning storage can result in a 36 to 94% decrease in the nutrition content of foods. So we want to be aware that once we start processing food, we lose a lot of the nutritional value. Choose foods that have the least amount of processing and artificial flavors. Also look for the ingredients and make sure there's 5 or less, which isn't on here, but that I always tell people to do. These foods usually have a long shelf life and are devoid of many nutrients if they're refined, processed, or canned. And eating fresh vegetables and fruit, lean meat, fish, whole grains, and good oils are really what you should be doing. And then if you can't eat all those good vegetables and fruit, then the best thing you can do is take a whole food supplement that supports your individual needs, and always consult an expert to find out what your specific dietary and nutritional needs are. So we want to say thank you for attending our class in reading labels, and we hope it helps you in your shopping endeavors. I also want to say that we're going to continue our special on the SP Completes, which have all the good organic vegetables in them, and they taste really good, and so you can make your own shakes out of that. We have vanilla chocolate, dairy-free and plain, and we have another class coming up in June, on June 22nd. It's about timed eating and the benefits of timed eating and how to safely intermittent fast for the best results. So thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the program and got some useful